Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Martech Matters podcast brought to you by Xeris. I'm Brandon Schulte, the Director of Marketing Technology here at Xeris, and I'm joined by Ed Underberg, who's our lead account executive for the Marketing Technology practice. Today, we're fortunate to be joined by Wayne Lopez, who is the founder and head of product at Vertify, an integration as a service platform. Welcome to the show today, Wayne.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate you having me today.
Well, we're always excited to talk about experts in the industry, or talk with experts in the industry just like you. So we're really excited to learn a little bit more about you and Vertify. Could you just give us a little bit of background on both you and the company?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks for having me, Ed. Thanks for having me as well. So myself, have a pretty long and storied career in the data space, going on 20 years. Every time I do these types of interviews, it starts to add up. It's like, used to be 18 years, 19 years, or 20. It's like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm starting to sound really old, but, I started off my career working off at IBM, Capgemini, and it was interesting, right? My co-founder, Matt, who some of you may have, met, when we started looking back at where we came from and to where we are now, and how in my early career, I was building CRM applications and BI applications and connecting those things, working for companies like IBM, it kind of like led you to where I am now with Vertify, but you never had any idea, maybe 20 years ago that you would start a company taking all of those skills and building those things together. But lo and behold, I've taken some of those experiences I had in the consulting world, and then most recently in the past 10 years, working in the startup space, where, being involved with integration, analytics, customer data, and it's just something that I really have a passion for. And again, it's kind of led me to where I am now in terms of heading a product at Vertify. And, that role consists of, specifically understanding what are the customer strategies, what are the things that customers care about in terms of feature, what is the job that they need to do, and how we bring things to market. And that's really my focus area at Vertify. And so, how we started Vertify, again, my co-founder is Matt Klepak, who's the CEO. It's been about 3 or 4 years now where, we actually took what was a services company working on data migrations and data integrations, specifically from on-prem to the cloud, and realized that we can actually build a product around this and not just do services, and realized that there was more of a need around having a sustainable product that had ongoing integrations, because everybody had these best of breed applications that didn't necessarily talk to each other. And even if they did, they didn't always have quality and want to make sure that, data quality was at the top of what they were thinking in terms of integrating those products. And so we built a product around it, used some of those services customers to be able to build that product. And then lo and behold, from that, we've been able to now expand into analytics based off of some of the data that we've been able to persist through those integrations. And we've really been able to, again, be a customer and client-centric company that listens to, what our customers care about in terms of data, and look at how we can continue to help people, especially in what we call the revenue operations space. And so when you look at how that's growing, how that's proliferating, integration, analytics become super important. And so we're in a really unique position in terms of what we created and to where we are now.
Fantastic question. Fantastic answer. Thanks so much, Wayne. And one of the words you used was passion, and one of my passions is meeting new people. So I'm really excited to meet you today, and thank you for joining us on the Martech Matters podcast. Our next question is, we hear it all the time at Xeris, and you use the word data quality in your introduction, and it kind of ties into this question. How difficult is it for marketers to get the right data attributes on their customers and prospects to actually harness in campaigns? Wayne, could you tell us a little bit about how Vertify helps solve for this problem?
Yeah, for sure, Ed. So I think it really starts at what we call like the raw data level. And I think people almost minimize how hard it is to really collect the volume of data, that's needed and to do something meaningful with it. So when you look at how we help solve some of those problems for marketers, part of it is not just our technology, but it's also our people experience. So whether it's our product team, customer success, engineering, or sales, we really know data. And we average probably about 15 to 20 years per employee in the customer data space. So part of helping people with their problems, especially marketers, get those right data attributes, you have to be able to collect the right data, you have to understand the data, and you have to be able to kind of speak data, right? And I think all of those things combined, and you look at some of our team's experience around working at companies like Marketo or like a NetSuite, and the relationships that we have with companies like a HubSpot or a Salesforce. We really view data as an asset. And in order to get those right data attributes, again, it starts at being able to collect the volume of data, to understand it, and then to have the people that can kind of translate, what that data means for customers and prospects. And so that's all kind of now transitioned to, we've built what we call a revenue operations common data model, where we can, again, understand the data behind the data and why certain data needs to go to certain places, and how to, again, translate and transform and transition that data so that you can get the right attributes, for the right customers and prospects. And so being able to get those things at the raw data level really helps to harness things at a campaign level. And if you're not thinking about it and understand the data, you really can't have good quality campaigns.
Great answer. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely great points, Wayne. So I know, I look at a platform like Vertify as kind of the glue that holds your MarTech stack together. So how do I connect my CRM system with my marketing automation system, with maybe my e-commerce system, with maybe some of my internal databases? I know there's a recent survey done by Forbes that found that only 13% of company leaders think that they're adequately leveraging company data to drive business success. And I know a lot of executives surveyed, about 90%, said that they see a modest to high risk of digital disruption in the coming years. How can companies use a platform like Vertify to really turn that digital disruption into a competitive advantage and get ahead of their competition?
Yeah, first, it's amazing that only 90% of them see this as a moderate risk, right? Not all of them see it as high. That's kind of like amazing. But I think the first thing is, look, it's not too late. Although, I can think back, 10 or 15 years where, people were talking about digital transformation and digital disruption. And it seems like it's been slow moving, but things like COVID, I think, have been an accelerator. And so now with so much data, you can actually get a grasp of where your competitors, or maybe like a cohort group of companies are, and use that to fuel some of your transformation efforts. So if you think about, how do I get that competitive advantage? There's so much data that's available, and you have to get your team bought into it. There's enough data to kind of say, hey, we can fuel this and get everybody bought in just by using some of that data around some of our competitors. Most of the data is already there. But I think it's kind of figuring out how to tap into it without the need for a ton of resources, right? And again, I think that's how you maintain that competitive advantage, where maybe in the past people thought I needed to hire, 10, 20 more people and all of these things to be able to get that competitive advantage. But I think part of that is, how can I do more with less? And that's a competitive advantage. And I think where the technology is and where the resources are, given that a lot of the data is already there, it's just having the right tools and resources like a Vertify to tap into it, to collect it, so that you can use that as an asset, right, to get that advantage moving forward.
Fantastic. Wayne, so I was reading a recent studies conducted by Okta, and they estimate that large businesses use upwards of 120 applications. Small to mid-sized businesses using around 70 applications. Either way, that's a lot of applications for an organization. While only a handful of them are related to marketing, how would you advise a company to create synergy and build in that competitive advantage that we were just talking about in their technical stack?
Yeah, man, you guys are really coming with the questions this morning, Ed. I think it all starts with connecting your customer data. So whether that data is for marketing or not, there's customer data in, a lot of different applications, and some that you really don't always, realize. Integration actually has to be a strategy. It can't just be kind of like this thing that you just kind of roll out, right, with all of these applications. So if you think about that, integration and automation has to be at the forefront, right? It's a strategy. It's not just a piece of technology in everything that you do, whether you're automating the data, automating workflows, or generating analytics. Thinking about the integration has to be at the forefront as a strategy. And so, actually at Vertify, we kind of call it the customer data journey. A lot of those, whether they're small or mid-sized or large companies, that synergy that's needed, it really means sharing trustworthy data. And that trustworthy data means that, it has to be accurate. And so to be able to create the answers that you need, automate your workflows and things like that, you have to share this data and think about it at the forefront and incorporate all of the data, not just the CRM. And I think that's a large, problem, is that everybody thinks about, okay, maybe my source of truth is the CRM, and as long as my data that's good is there. Well, what about all of the other applications that rely on that data as well? Again, it has to be part of your strategy at the very forefront, and not just like this thing that's an afterthought. And I think if that happens, when you roll out a new technology, or you start to bring more people or new people to your organization, that will lead to success when you consider that as, hey, this integration is actually part of my strategy, not just a piece of technology to help me solve maybe one particular problem.
Definitely great points there. And I know, I love how you talked about how technology and data can be an accelerant to the demand generation process for companies, and even a competitive advantage. As your product is one of those key ingredients that helps connect systems together. And a lot of times you guys are brought into companies when a new technology is purchased, like a marketing automation system, like a e-commerce system. Technology is one of the solutions, but people and process can be equally important. They're kind of the three legs of the stool for success. How have you seen that people and processes need to change as new technologies are added to organizations to be able to be successful, to take advantage of the technology that your service offers with Vertify, but also the other product maybe they bought, whether that's a Marketo or Magento or something else?
Yeah, Brandon, I think sometimes the change management piece gets overlooked, right? It's like, hey, I bought this new technology that's going to solve all my problems, but people's jobs are going to change. Sometimes they're going to do less things. Sometimes maybe they have to do some additional things that they didn't have to do before. And so thinking about the change management piece, again, at the very beginning, will help lead to success. But really, at the end of the day, again, I think people make the difference. And we see this all the time, where companies that are new to marketing automation systems, they think it's just kind of like plug and play, right? And it's like, all right, now everything will be automated, and they kind of don't realize that, processes now need to be thought about, and processes need to change. Things like, hey, now I have this, predictive opportunity score, or things like that. How does that now play in a role for my sales team or something? And so you can't just roll out the tech like a basketball. It's like, hey, it just solves my problem. And again, I think one of the things like with Vertify specifically, and some other companies in this space, is we help with our people. We help them to think through some of the best practices, the thought leadership, because we've seen so many of these different processes that now change. We can now help coach them on, hey, these are the things that you need to think about now that you're able to automate this particular campaign, or now that this data is accessible to the salesperson in terms of like an interesting moment, or these activity data. What do they now have to do with it, and what can they do with it? And so that change management piece, I think, really helps to move the process of technology adoption, quicker and faster. And it helps also for everybody to get kind of, bought in, so that when you're rolling out that new technology. And so that process piece, again, can't be overlooked. And as soon as people realize that, hey, the technology doesn't solve it by itself, I do need to think about change management. And change management can be a thing that kind of ebbs and flows. It's not like I just bite it all in one piece. It can be an evolving thing. And again, when we have people like at Vertify that we leverage team, from customer success and things like that to be able to help accommodate, some of those change management pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. Wayne, we concur 100% on that. We see that change management across all the practice areas at Xeris is something that, we have to be at the forefront of communicating with our clients about in order to assure successful outcomes on projects. Kind of wrapping things up today, Wayne, wanted to give you a chance to just tell our viewers where they can go to learn more about you and more about Vertify.
Yeah, so of course, our website is Vertify, and that's vertify.com. We're also pretty active on LinkedIn, and we try to post a lot of content that, in terms of thought leadership, best practices, surveys, things just to be helpful for people. And so we're also available on Twitter at Vertify Data. Had to make the data a part of it. So those are a couple of the places. And so myself personally, I can be reached at wlopez@vertify.com. If you have questions, about whether it's integration, data analytics, and things like that. So again, we're pretty active on social media, and those are some of the places that you can reach out to us.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Wayne. Great information as always. A great partner. We're excited to work with Vertify all the time and on all the different technologies that we serve as well. So thanks again for your time today. For more episodes of our podcast, please visit www.xeris.com/videos, and have a great day, everyone.